let's get started. You see, there's a lot of people on the call. Most of you, I know, you know about how the call works, but I still make a reminder for other people. Is we do the online meeting, and then to make sure that there's not too much background noise, we ask everybody to mute themselves. So that we don't hear your background noise. But obviously anyone can talk anytime they want. Just remember to unmute yourself and then just talk at that time. Let me see if I see this function that allows me to mute everyone else, but I don't see it. But if you can mute yourself by yourself, that would be good already. That's fine. I'll start like this. Hopefully everyone muted themselves. Okay, let's get the meeting started. Oops. Wait, where did this go? Okay. So first of all, I want to let you all know that there is another webinar next week on Wednesday at the same time. So we do 2 webinars a month. This one is a release webinar, which is fast-paced, where we announce the improvements and changes to the platform. And the other webinar that we do in association with B2B is more of a peer-to-peer webinar where we answer your questions. So just you can mark your calendars for next week for those that are interested in that other webinar. And then here you have a couple of email addresses for support, where you can put improvement requests, and also where you can find the training doc. If you don't have any of this information, just let us know. And here, I want to share the agenda with you. We have some news that we want to announce. And then we have the current release notes that will go on the server December 15th, so this weekend. And then I want to talk also about the January priorities. So let's move on with the news. First news is that we have a number of new villages starting with us. So we wanted to welcome our group, the villages in Portland, Maine, also Bill on the Hill in Ohio, and Parkland Village in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So maybe some of them are on the call, and we want to welcome them all. And the other news that I'm sure you're interested in is that we have a new team member.
Oh my gosh.
That's the big news. We hired a new person, and this new person is starting on Monday. So it's a gentleman this time around, and his name is Kian. It's written C-I-A-N, but the pronunciation apparently is Kian. So he will be on Slack from Monday, obviously also working on training docs. And the best way to contact him, he will have his personal email address, but I think it's a good idea to send all your requests to support@helpfulvillage.com, so that those emails come to me this week, and then from next week they'll start going to him. But you can always use support@helpfulvillage.com to get your your requests through the system. So obviously excited about Kian starting, and I'm sure we'll keep him busy. Okay, this is a reminder about the B2B webinar next week. So the format of that other webinar is a little bit different. For those for who this is the first time they're on the webinar, this webinar is quite fast-paced. It's kind of the experts meeting where we are showing advanced features and requests and what some new improvements and things we're working on. The webinar next week is easier to follow for villages that have started more recently and that have kind of more of a beginner questions and such. So we're doing that with Joanne. Joanne wanted to be on the call today, but she was unavailable. She may join the call, during the meeting, but I talked to her just earlier this morning. We have training videos and training documents that you can, if you don't have access to them, just email support@helpfulvillage.com. We'll share the links with you. Now let's get started with the fun part, which is the release notes, which is what has changed in the platform over this last month. We have been working on some technical improvements, and this is the list. There is some very fun stuff. So by the end, we have a live demo, and I'm quite excited about that feature, but we'll get there. First thing is the grace period. So these have been implemented. It had been a request by Bay2Sound. I know Taos was also interested. Let me explain what this is. It's you have member that, let's say, signed up for 12 months, you have a join date, you have an expiration date. And sometimes these people are invited to renew. There are automatic features that in Helpful Village that allows you to send automatic emails for them to renew. But sometimes, that some people don't renew within before the expiration date. But village coordinators know that they will renew. That was creating some problems. You cannot put service requests if they were expired. So we added a grace period. So the grace period is a number of days that you can manage in settings of your village, which says for how long after the expiration date this person is still considered as an active member. So you can choose if you want to say 0 grace period, well then the expiration date is the expiration date. If you say it's 30 days, well then for 30 days the person will be able to use the system. And actually the other thing that I wanted to mention is that members that are in the grace period, if your grace period is not 0, are considered active members for all purposes. So for logging in, for having access to member features in your reports will be considered as active members. And then also for billing purposes for us at Helpful Village, because because basically they are active members, we'll be billing for counting them for the monthly fees. So it's essentially, just want to read the second sentence again. The members that are in the grace period are active members for access, reporting, and billing. I'll show you some of this during the demo. I see there are questions in the chat, but this week, because I'm by myself during the meeting, it's hard for me to read the chat and speak at the same time. So I'll read the chat at a later time, or if it's something that is really important at this time, just unmute yourself and ask your question orally, because I cannot. I will not be reading the chat while I speak. Now, more features. One is that there is a new report that you will find under reporting spreadsheets, and the name of the report is List Active Volunteers. So this is something we have been discussing with some villages, in particular Carquines, that had started the conversation on Slack. Is about how can we reactivate some volunteers that volunteered some time ago and then have not been completing requests. So we did something very simple. It's like on the reporting spreadsheets, you can download a spreadsheet file with all your active volunteers, but they're sorted. So basically the goal was to put on top of the list those that volunteered the longest time ago. For example, the first person on the list would be someone that is active volunteer, but volunteered, let's say, 3 years ago. And the last one on the list at the bottom will be a person that volunteered yesterday, right? So in that way, the village coordinators can take that list and maybe contact the people that are at the top of the list and say, well, you volunteered quite some time ago, and then we'll be happy to see you, engage again. So hopefully this report will be helpful to you, and then we welcome feedback about it. Now, before I move on to the next item, I wanted to discuss about what is active volunteer, right? So active volunteer is someone that is that has some volunteer activities. It needs to be screened by, validated by the village admin. It's basically something that is usually done after the background checks are completed or screened, etc. So active volunteer is someone that is, validated by the village, and also that the volunteer dates are within the date range. What I mean is that you're not an active volunteer if the end of your volunteer period was last week, or if you're starting to be a volunteer next week. So, if the dates are set and you have been validated by the village, you are an active volunteer. And then this list active volunteers is just sorting of the same report as active volunteers. Whew. Okay, next item. So next item is search people. So this is an improvement that was requested by East Rock Creek Village in Washington, D.C. You all know this, I think it's my favorite field on Helpful Village, the search functionality on the top left when you're an admin. And anytime there is a search person field, and then you can go in there and type either the first name, the last name, the phone number, or something. We were displaying all people. For example, if you say Manuel, it would show all Manuels in the list. But the improvement is about the display of the result. So what we were doing before is that, well, we were showing first though the users that were created first, kind of, you know, the kind of by creation date. And now, I mean, it makes more sense to sort them with alphabetically, last name first and then first name. So yeah, it's just a better sorting of the results of the search functionality. Okay, more improvements. There is this other field in the user profile that is preferred contact channel. And by the way, I know there are some, you know, English teachers and linguists among you. What it means is that how does this person prefers to be contacted? So some people prefer being contacted on their cell phone. Some other people prefer being contacted on their home phone. Some people prefer contacted by text message. So this field existed before. What we added is that, you know, as a suggestion that Taos did to Jim, is that added the text message possibility so that you know what's the preferred channel. Now, my question to the English teachers is how I call the field. I said preferred contact channel. I was unsure about channel being the right word. So if you have something better, preferred contact method or something, just, you know, let me know either through the chat or on Slack or something, and I'm happy to change that name.
Manuel, this is Margie from East Rock Creek Village.
Yes.
I'm sorry, backing up to the search people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any time you encounter a search for when you want to add somebody to a mailing list or to a group or whatever? That all of those are now sorted.
No, they are sorted is kind of the top left when you're searching people from, you know, and the results is called all people. Sometimes we can search people in other ways, and I don't think the sorting.
Well, yeah, but the ticket that I submitted had to do with when you were searching, for example, to add a person to a mailing list or whatever, and it says search people. So if you have a lot of Smiths, they were in ID order, not in last name, first name order. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if your last name is pretty unique, but once you start to get 800 or 900 members.
Yeah.
So that was the intent, and I can't check to see exactly what you mean now, but did you mean anytime you have the option of putting in a name in a search box, that the results will now be in last name, first name order? That was my intention in the ticket.
No, I don't think it's in any time. It's on, you know, on the general search functionality. If there are other places where you think it makes sense, just let us know. In general, you know, for programming, it's kind of hard to know. Well, in all places, in any place where that exists, because there can be search functionalities in different places. But it's easier if we identify the specifics, saying, well, in this list, I had a problem. You know, I think it makes more sense to sort them. So if we forgot some other places, just let us know. So definitely.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we were with this preferred contact channel. So for the wording, you will let me know. Now we are moving on to a bigger topic, or more complex, at least from the programming perspective, which is the MailChimp improvements.
Manuel?
Yes.
On the preferred contact method, can we also send it to groups, or is that just going to be an individual?
It's an individual. What do you mean by group?
Well, if I want to send a text to, if I want to send a message to a group like I would an email messenger, it would be, I was wondering if there was a way to do that via text.
So it's a good question. By the way, can you just, you know, when you're speaking, so Carol, I think it's you speaking, but yeah, it's good to, you know, when people participate, to say the name and the village so that everyone knows where the question is coming from. So at this point, what this improvement is adding that on the person profile, so that we know for which person what is their preferred method. So in the future, we may do something smarter where, you know, I mean, we contact each person using the channel they prefer, but we're not doing that. The software is not using that channel depending on their preferences is something that you can review on the person's profile. You know, if you're the admin and you look them up, you will know what do they prefer, and then you use the channel or the method that they prefer. But the software is not doing the, using these different channels. Now, the other thing I wanted to say about text message is that we have been researching ourselves into adding the capability of Helpful Village to send text messages. Is something we may do in the future, you know, to replace email sometimes. But that has not been added yet, but it's technically possible to have the platform send text messages. We did in tests, and the text message went. But there are other implications. Did that answer your question, Carol? Or
yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, was going for the big things here. So MailChimp. I'm pretty sure that you all know, but I'll still do the definition of what MailChimp is. MailChimp is a mass email tool. So it's a great tool for your outreach efforts when you're writing to a list of people. It's synchronized with Helpful Village, meaning that the Helpful Village server can talk to MailChimp and synchronize contacts, the email addresses with MailChimp automatically for you. When you hit the synchronize button, for example, if you added a new member that is an active member, well, then you can go to the active members list and synchronize that list. That email address will be added to their MailChimp list so that they are notified with the active members messages. So this is something we have had for a while. It's actually two separate databases. There's one database in Helpful Village, and there's another database in MailChimp. And synchronizing two databases is always a little bit complicated, because you know what happens when you change here, when you change on the other side. And we have been adding more improvements there. Some of these improvements are kind of transparent or bugs fixing. For example, we added some cleanup functions because before it was possible to add more mailing lists to MailChimp from Helpful Village, but we were being kind of cautious, and we were never deleting these mailing lists from MailChimp. We're leaving them there, but also that creates other problems because, you know, well, basically now we need to do some cleanup so that we remove unused mailing lists. So those are kind of the housekeeping functions that we have been working on this month. We also added better error messages. In the past, we had something a little bit generic about saying, well, we have a problem with MailChimp. Now we have better messages saying, well, sometimes MailChimps, have a limit on the number of mailing lists that they allow, and then it just explains better. Although there's a lot of tech lingo in what I just said. Now, from a user perspective, there's something that is really important that I want you to listen carefully, because in the past we were using a checkbox that was called the newsletter on the user profile, right? And that checkbox is what was saying, well, this person is someone we want to contact through MailChimp, right, on the group emails. But we were getting a lot of questions from people about, why people were not getting onto MailChimp. So we decided to rename that checkbox. And what the checkbox that was called newsletter before is going to be called MailChimp from now on, so that it will be more obvious for people to know, well, this person has the MailChimp checkbox checked. And that means, yes, that we're requesting it to be synchronized with MailChimp. There is another checkbox that we created, which is MailChimp manually.
Manuel, it's Margie again from East Rock Creek Village.
Yes.
Hang on. I mean, we have a number. There are 4 categories where there are mailing lists where any of them could be synchronized with MailChimp. Mm-hmm. So does this mean that any one of them we should check that box, or only the newsletter?
Well, the thing is that this is what we're trying to fix right now, right? Is that newsletter before, it was not even a mailing list, was the whole list, right? On MailChimp, was everything, right? So now we're just renaming that into MailChimp, and then actually let me show you on the website. It's just easy. Here, people management. Well, actually on the user profile. So that's me. I'm Bill Hewlett. So basically here, right, on the tags of the person, we had a few well, basically here we were saying this newsletter checkbox is the old checkbox that was saying, well, do we want to synchronize this person with MailChimp, right? So starting this weekend, instead of reading newsletter here, you will read like this. It will say MailChimp. And that means that, yes, we want this person to be synchronized with MailChimp for group emails. Okay? Then, for
any group email that we
yes.
pick, for any...
Yes. For any group email, you will need to have the MailChimp box checked. It was exactly...
Does that mean we have to go through our whole, database and do that, or will you go through and set that for anyone that's in any of the mailing list groups?
Yes. So if you have people that you need to do kind of mass kind of checking or something, contact us through to support at Helpful Village or on Slack, and we can synchronize about helping that synchronize for you. But obviously we need to be careful. One of the things that MailChimp does is that they want to be careful so that people don't spam people out sending unsolicited email. So we're happy to check that box with you, but you need to tell us that these people are supposed to receive it and soliciting basically or asking to be contacted through these group emails. But basically the short answer is contact us off this call, and then see, for example, say, well, all the active members should be subscribed, and then we can run a query for you. Okay, so that was it. So let me go back to, well, actually I can stay here. So basically this is how this works. So when a person, you want them to be included in the group emails, you need to go to their profile and click the MailChimp button, right? Now, then we will send a group email, maybe the events email that goes out on Sundays, or any of the group emails that we send through MailChimp, right? People can, and all these emails contain a link allowing the person to unsubscribe from that link, from that mailing list. That's kind of spam regulation, right? It's like just to limit that, MailChimp will add a link that allow people to unsubscribe. If they unsubscribe, you will see here another checkbox that comes there that is not editable, that says MailChimp unsubscribe. That will tell you that this person removed herself from the list. Sometimes the people don't unsubscribe themselves. They will call the office and say, well, you know what, I don't want to receive more of these group emails or the newsletter. I want to, please remove me. In that case, you can come to the user profile and click that checkbox here that says MailChimp manually remove. This means this is a new checkbox saying, well, the person has asked us to not send it, to not be included in the mailing lists. So this is a new checkbox too. Okay, if there are questions now.
Manuel, this is Carol from Oregon.
Yes.
So is the newsletter checkbox going away, and in its place will be the MailChimp mailbox checkbox? So
great question. So we will automatically rename this one. We will call it MailChimp because this is what it was doing already, right? Yeah. Just we realized this naming convention was a little bit confusing. So so when you log in on Monday, you will see that you will not see newsletter on your tags, and you will see it will be MailChimp. And the people that already were checked with newsletter will be checked with MailChimp already. There is nothing to be
And done. So will this change mean that we don't have to manually synchronize all of our groups?
Well, you still need to synchronize, yeah. You still need to synchronize. So what we're saying here is the information about should this person be synchronized or not, right? Should be included in the mailing list, but then, the synchronization, let me go there. For example, here, if you go to admin, people management groups, here you have your mailing lists, and then from here, you can choose any of the mailing lists here. And then down here, you have the synchronize with MailChimp, right? But you still need to synchronize. We are looking at, doing it automatically ourselves from time to time, but we need to be careful not to, do that too often so that MailChimp doesn't get mad at us, etc. So for now, we start with a kind of semi-manual process. Another thing I wanted to say about,
Manuel, this is Margie again. So what you're saying is if we went one by one through our mailing lists that we use as these groups, the categories and groups, and did a resynchronize, then that would give us those MailChimp groups to be able to send an email.
Yes, but before there's another thing is that, for example, here you can synchronize your volunteer activities. For example, if you want to send an email to your friendly visit group and you have different people here, you have a button here that allows you to add this group to MailChimp.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, if it's not on MailChimp already, you can add it to MailChimp. And if it's on MailChimp, you will have to synchronize with MailChimp button. Yeah, you know, by the way, you know, for people that have questions about MailChimp, it's like, we know that it's a kind of a, you know, it's a process that is not necessarily, you know, super obvious. So when Kian comes next week, we're gonna work on a training document to make it, you know, explain a little better what are the, you know, the subtleties of the MailChimp synchronization.
One more question.
Yes.
This is Carol again. So after Sunday,
yes,
the newsletter checkbox will go away, and the MailChimp box will be there, and it will be unchecked, and we're going to have to go through and check the ones that need to be checked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So wait. So what other? So we are not removing any of the information. You see what I'm saying? Is that so what you said about check or uncheck, for example, let's go here. If you go to
so
yeah.
Monday, the newsletter checkbox will be gone on the general tab for every person.
Mm-hmm.
And the new checkbox will be there that's called MailChimp.
Yes, but it will be checked.
It will be checked.
Yes, for those, for those where newsletter is checked, the MailChimp box will be checked for you.
That's what I needed to understand.
Exactly. So thank you for the question. Allow me to clarify. It's like, we are not losing that information. You should consider that basically the newsletter kind of checkbox is being renamed into MailChimp, right? So it's just renaming, but the checkbox being there or not being there will stay.
So for our purposes, it's just a name change for that check.
Yes, for your purposes, it's a name change. And then for your, you know, going forward for your training is that you just, you know, train your coordinators or your people to say, well, you know, if we want to add these people to our mailing list, the MailChimp checkbox needs to be checked. Right. Okay, so that was for the MailChimp thing. Let me go back to, I need to move this around, which is,
I'm sorry, Manuel, I have one more question about this. Are there people that can decline the newsletter, so they're not on that MailChimp newsletter, but they could be on some other MailChimp list?
Yeah, no, we only manage, good question, Margie. So we only manage one, let me see. That MailChimp box tells us if the person would be included in any of the mailing lists that we send through MailChimp. If the person is like, no, you know, I don't want to receive any of the group communications, then you go. Let me do it again. Manuel, so this is my profile again, where we're going to, and then here, if the person says, no, I don't want to receive any other emails from groups, you can go check this box and they will not receive any of them. But when they click that one, we will basically archive them in MailChimp. So basically, if they were in the driver's mailing list or in the friendly visitors mailing list, they will not receive.
So they have to be in the general MailChimp pile, or they can't be on any mailing list.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. You're all helping me. I need an English teacher, as we're saying. But basically, this says, yes, is this person on MailChimp or is this person not on MailChimp?
This is Carol again. So I see that you check the remove manually from MailChimp. Do you just unchecking the MailChimp box will not?
Well, excellent question. The thing is what we were doing before. But the thing is that if you uncheck, you don't know if the person was never added to MailChimp before, and you may be tempted to do it again, right? But basically, with this additional checkbox was added to say that this person intentionally removed herself from MailChimp. You know what I mean? It has to be intentionally removed.
Then would we need to uncheck the MailChimp box, or it'll just take care of itself?
No, I will take care. If this one is checked, here, it will take care of removing this person from MailChimp. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you know, thank you for those questions. You know, it's like this month has been a little crazy because these are these little details about, you know, oh, how do we know if the person was ever added or not added? And well, let's have this additional checkbox here that will do it. Okay, so that's.
Sorry, Manuel. Sorry, yes. Under people, can you go over to your groups, your categories and groups?
Yes.
And is there a newsletter mailing list? So if a person wants to be on some other list but not get the newsletter, you could take them out of the newsletter list. Is that correct?
Yes. For example, if you go down here back to Friendly Visit, and this person, you know, should be removed from the Friendly Visit group. Well, then
no, but I mean from the newsletter. So then the newsletter mailing list becomes just like any other list.
Yes. This newsletter group will become like any other of the mailing lists. It's basically the people that will want to receive your newsletter. You know, it's like what
right, which it was not before.
Yeah.
Before it was handled by the individual profile and what was checked. So now it's just becoming.
Exactly. Newsletter becomes normal, and exactly.
Thank you.
Perfect.
This is Jim from Taos. You still have two newsletter groups, one under mailing lists and one under tagged people.
Yes.
Will that change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. You know, well, first of all, let me say two things. All those were great questions. You know, when we did this at first, we thought like, oh, everyone would like to be notified in a group, so let's add a checkbox that is the newsletter, right? But then we started getting some feedback from villages saying, well, this person wants to receive, you know, volunteer activities, but they don't want to receive the newsletter, etc. So we needed to, you know, adapt, and this is what we're doing now. Sorry for the inconvenience for people that were used to, you know, one way of doing, but I think this new method will be clear. And if we say MailChimp means it's on MailChimp, and then newsletter means, well, this person wants to receive the newsletter. So I think, you know, the new change will make more sense. I want to say another thing is that, you know, given all the questions and also knowing that MailChimp is an important topic, I think we should make it a topic for our next webinar next week. You know, remember that I was saying that it's more about, you know, peer-to-peer questions on the B2B webinar, which is December 18th. I'll add this one to the agenda. So for those that still have questions about, you know, the MailChimp synchronization, I would say, you know, sign up for the B2B webinar next week, and I'll prepare some, you know, training material explaining you know, the process a little bit better. You will all have the new version on your villages. So, you know, we will go over it step by step. But what does the MailChimp checkbox mean? How to unsubscribe someone, etc. So, you know, if you still have questions about the process, just, you know, see you all at the B2B webinar December 18th. So next Wednesday. Okay, that being said, I want to go to the demo of the week. And the demo of the week is about this. It's a user profile. So I'll do a live demo of this new functionality. But what this means is that now members and volunteers are able to go online and manage themselves some of their information. So it's something that was requested by different people, like how can people update their, you know, their contact or their address, etc. Their vacation period, where we had people that had to call the office saying, oh, I will be on vacation next week, etc. They had to call. This is now possible from their user profile. So they, you know, they can do it themselves, and I can show you how to do this. Before we go to the demo, I wanted to let you know that the user profile is different from the admin profile, right? The admin profile is where the village coordinators can manage everything, right, for this person. The user profile, there are some information we don't want them to change, right? For example, can they, you know, validate a screen themselves? Well, no, that's an admin feature, right? So the profile is a little different. The fields we included there are the fields that we thought were not a problem, for the village if they change. For example, if a person, is changing their address or their phone number, they can go in and change it themselves. If they are changing their emergency contacts, we believe that they should be able to do it anytime. The vacation period is also that seemed also quite obvious that they can go in and change it, when they're out of town. Now, volunteer activities is a little bit more of a challenge, right? Because we have added it to the user profile, but we also have heard of villages that said, well, if a person wants to go in and change their volunteer activities, sometimes it can be a problem because, in this village, we only had one person that was good with tech assistance. And if they go in and they remove themselves, well, then we may end up having nobody, and then that can be a problem for the village. So, so we were thinking about this because it's kind of two different ideas. It's like, one is like, oh, people should be able to choose their volunteer activities. And the other idea was like, well, what happens if the village has some operational changes? So what we did is that we allow the user to modify their volunteer activities that they volunteer for, but there will be an automatic email that goes out to the village if that happens. So in the case, for example, let's say in our previous example that the person was doing, tech assistance, and it was our only tech assistant, well, there would be an email that goes out to the administrator of the village saying, well, this person changed their profile and their volunteer activities, and then basically, the village can go in, check, and then if they see that they lost their only tech assistant volunteer, well, maybe they can make a phone call and try to convince the person to, keep doing it. So, anyways, let's just go there and show you how that works. So this is exciting. We go here on the demo site, and you will see here. Actually, let me log out. And it's already something that is new because this logout function changed a little bit. So here, when I log in.
So Manuel, can I ask, this is Diane from Clayton Valley Village. So is this going to be automatic, or we have to set up rights management?
No, this is automatic. Great question.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now I log in as usual, right? And the first difference that we will notice is that here on the top end, now we see a picture, the user profile, and a little menu here that allows to manage my account. So here, if I click on the little arrow, I see three things. First is I can view my profile, I can change the password, and I can sign out. So before, it's a little different to what we had before, but it's essentially the same principle. I won't show you sign out because you can imagine what that is. But basically here, if we do change password, now any person that goes in is able to change their current password. So they can go in here and say, well, my current password is something, and then I want to change it, and from now on I want to have a different password that is like this, and then I can update it, right? So now each person can go in and change their password. There are two different ways to change their password, right? You can do it from here, change your password, or you can always do what we had before, which is any person can go when they're on the sign-in page, they can always click here on forgot your password, and forgot your password, when you enter here your email address, it will send me an email with, password instructions. So here, this is what I would use is I forgot my password, I don't remember it. But if I remember it, it's easier to go on my profile and change it from there. Okay, signed in successfully. Now the big surprise. So the big surprise is the user profile. I cannot wait anymore. So just let's go there. We can click here, and then on view profile, we have this page that may sound a little familiar to you because basically, it's a little similar to the admin profile where we have a picture here, the name. Obviously, the main difference is underneath where basically the tabs are not the same. On the admin profile, you have, the payments, you have the notes, you have prospects notes, etc. Here is only the public information that basically the person can review on their profile. So here, We have my contact information, my phone number, email, my postal address, my preferred contact channel or method, what are my emergency contacts, and we also have a new field, I think, that is the bio, because now that these profiles can become richer, in future versions, we may want to make it more fun for members to go check a different person and their bio, etc. So it's a good way to start describing a little bit each of the people, and they can do it themselves when they connect. Now, there is something that is quite interesting with this, is that this information can be managed by each user, right? They can update their phone number, email, etc. But the big question is, who can see this, right? So we added a little note here that says, well, the contact information, I can see it for myself on my profile, but this will this is not visible to everybody. This is only visible to, well, I can review it myself. And also, if I'm a volunteer and I'm volunteering for someone, well, then basically they can access my contact information. For example, if I'm going to visit this afternoon, let's say Paula, that is going to a medical appointment, well, we think Paula should be able to go to your contact profile, to your user profile, and get your phone number to let you know that, maybe she's not going anymore or she had a problem or something. But obviously this is kind of super interesting. It's like, who should be able to see this? Our inclination at Healthful Village is always to protect the privacy as much as possible, right? So we started with very restrictive access. We are happy to hear your feedback. I know some people are okay with including this information in the members directory or something, but we start very, very conservative in terms of privacy. Okay, same thing here. For example, the emergency contacts. If the emergency contacts are visible, well, to myself, to the village coordinators, but also to the volunteer that is volunteering for you. So same example that we said before. If we're volunteering for, I don't know, Katie this afternoon, well, basically I'm able to review the emergency contacts for Katie, because, if there is something, I visited to their house and there's something, a problem or something, I should be able to, maybe act on it. Obviously, it's always better to call the village, but if you have feedback about our defaults here and who should see emergency contacts and everything, just let us know. Same principle applies here. We try to be very conservative and not showing it to everybody.
So Manuel, this is Margie again from East Rock Creek Village. So this does tag into a request that we made that I hadn't heard anything about.
Yeah.
Is it possible, is it on the table at all to have a credentialing level for people that we want to be able to see stuff, like look up phone numbers, etc., for making phone calls to invite, but not to edit anything?
Yeah, though that one is.
So I had asked about this a number of weeks ago, and didn't get any feedback on it. Is that on the table at all?
Well, we don't. I mean, it's not in the short-term schedule in the sense that, like, we reported the request and as a view-only profile, but we it could be connected to this. So basically, we will be collecting the feedback about the user profile, and it can be similar to this, but we don't have a definitive answer yet to how we would do that.
Okay, well, I'd be interested in other people thinking about, if you want people to have hands-on to the system to look up a phone number, but not be able to change anything.
Yes, definitely. People that have feedback either on Slack or through email, we're interested in knowing what you think about this user profile, who should see it. As I said, I think it's a good thing to start being very conservative, like not showing it to anybody, but we will listen to the feedback about, if we open it up to these people or to this group or this other thing. Anyways.
Manuel, this is Judy in Helpful Rainy Day Village in Oregon. So up to the top contact info, you gave the example that it's visible to a member that you volunteer for. So when that service request is fulfilled, then does that go away for that member so they can no longer?
Yes, at this time, yes. Yes.
I think that, thank you.
That's a great question.
Manuel, this is Carol in Oregon.
Yes. So
do volunteers and members have an option of what is shared on this?
Not at this point. Not at this point. It's a great question. Now let me think.
Volunteers are not going to want their address shared with them.
Exactly. This is what I was saying before. It's a great point. You know, it's like I really like that kind of feedback. It's like I think our approach should be not disclosing that information in general. Me personally, I don't want my phone number to be out there to when it's not needed.
Or even an email address. We want all of our members to contact the office directly and not contact volunteers directly.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I think, you know, we should have all that conversation. I think I would invite everybody, you know, maybe we should have that on Slack so that we can, you know, have opposite kind of feedbacks and opinions and have a discussion there. But I'm with you. My first inclination is saying, well, I don't want my personal contact information out there unless it's needed. If I'm volunteering for someone, and then I showed up at her house because she couldn't contact me, well then, you know, I will not be super excited. So in that case, I prefer this person having my contact information so that she can let me know that she canceled. Right? That one for me makes sense. But the general inclination is like not disclosing it anytime possible. Now, you know, let's have that conversation. Maybe, you know, we can add some additional instructions saying, well, you know, this is the contact info, but please call the village first or something like that. So yeah, it's you know, it's an interesting conversation. Let's move on. Let's you know, keep on going a little bit and then we can discuss some more. So this is the contact information. The next one is membership. So this is visible to village coordinators. Here is only essentially about possibility to see where is my membership at right now. So my membership type is that I'm an individual member, I'm active, join date, my expiration date, and eventually we will add a button here allowing this person to renew from here. But it's essentially a read-only. So obviously they cannot edit their membership information. That's not allowed. This is if they want to do it, they need to contact the village. And the next one is an interesting one, is volunteering, right? Where basically you can see what are my volunteer activities and also what are the days I'm ready to volunteer. And now I want to pause for 2 seconds because I'm going to hit the magic button, which is the edit button, right? This is what the user profile, what the user can go in and edit. So a good dignified click in there. And this is how it looks like. So this is the user-generated profile, right? So I can go in here. Now members and volunteers can go in and edit their picture. And this could be really fun. You know what I mean? I was discussing with Bonnie from Capital City in Austin, and she had a campaign where basically she sent an MailChimp email to their members saying, please send me your picture, and then I'll update the picture on the website, etc. I think it could be interesting now that we think about a different way to do this kind of campaign where we could have a mass email to your members saying, well, you know, we would be happy, we would be thankful if you can go in and update your contact information, maybe your email, phone numbers, and your picture, and that's good. So that's something we can discuss some more about how does this change the member onboarding process. But essentially here, I just can go in, update my email, update my phone number, and my cell phone. This is the preferred contact channel that we discussed before. Remember that we said that we added this text message option. So I can go in here and say, well, now, you know, my preferred contact method is text message. Personally, for me, it's email. But anyways, this is where you can update the bio. The bio will say here for visibility that would be visible to all. And then here, if I was to change my address, I can go in here and then update my address. Now, what's interesting is that this is really changing the record of the person, you know? So it was also a question for me. It's like, you know, someone is moving, can they go in and just change their address? Kind of a little bit funny that, you know, it changes a little bit because before it was like, oh, you need to call the office and we'll change your address. Now here it's like, no, you can go in and change it yourselves. And then down here, same thing, first emergency contact that will be visible to this. So this is my sister, phone number, email, relationship. So this is his sister. And then obviously I can add a second one here. Here, sister. Okay, here and now, here volunteer services on both ends. So the volunteer services, now I was a driver before, but now let's say that I want to start doing, Spanish speaking. I like that one. And then now, not gardening, but I can do handy person. Not really. It's not fair, I cannot say handy person. I'm a software guy. Okay, friendly visit, and then here, village builder is my volunteer activities for the village, right? So I can help with technical stuff, let's say. Then volunteer availability. Let's say that I don't want to volunteer on the weekends. I can change that here. And then here, next thing is that I think this one was not a question. It's like I think everybody should be able to come in and edit their vacation dates. For example, here, let's say that I will be out from the 21st of December till let's say 25th, right? And then now I activated my vacation period, and now I can save my profile.
And did you say that was going to automatically generate an email to admin so that we can review those changes?
Yes.
Perfect. I really appreciate this update more than I can say.
Well, you know, I thought also that it was very exciting because first it reinforces the engagement of the member or the volunteer with the village. It's like, well, now you have an online space where you can go in and then update, you know, a picture or volunteer activities. It reinforces the link with the person. Plus, it removes from some office work, right? Because you don't need to upload the pictures yourself. It's something that other people are doing for you. So that's really exciting. Obviously, the question was, well, what happened with the changes, you know, at the office level? So that I'm, you know, really happy to hear from you how you see that going. But basically,
so Manuel, this is Diane again from Clayton Valley Village. So my volunteer activities are different than what is showing here. Are the ones that I have going to be carted over?
Yes, absolutely. So these volunteer activities are coming from the database. So these are the volunteer activities in the demo site. But you will have your own here.
Okay.
Here. Okay, so now what I was doing is that, well, you saw how this updated, right? So we added a second emergency contact. So my mom is here, and phone number, and then the contact channel, that is email, is here. And now on the volunteer side, we see that we added the Spanish speaking volunteer activity and the friendly visit and the village builder now that is here. There is no Saturday and Sunday anymore. And now my vacation dates are from this date to this date. Okay, so now that was done, I want to show you something else.
Manuel, before you go on to, this is Susan Davis from East Rock Creek Village. What would happen if someone changed their email? It seems to me that they would not be able to sign on anymore because their email address is their username.
Yes, excellent question, Susan, because this feature is exciting, but I was a little torn with this kind of, you know, things that can happen. The person can change their email address and then they can log in with the new email address they entered. So for example, here I say, well, instead of Manuel at Helpful Village, if you say manuel.acevedo@helpfulvillage.com and I save this, the next time I log in, I should be able to log in with this.
How will that impact people who share an email address?
Absolutely. Well, first, I don't have an answer. I need to try that one. It's a great question.
They better be talking to each other and communicating.
Well, they're entered individually.
No. It's a great question. It's a great question because, you know, in that case, when you're sharing this email address, we have this other thing where there is an account number, and we need to test that. So that's a great point that you bring up. I have to test that. You know, I'm writing down that note. So for people sharing the email address.
Manuel,
yes.
This is Margie again from East Rock Creek Village. I have something to bring up that I think everybody will find important just because it's getting to the end of the tax year, but it's not an easy thing. What's the best thing to do? It has to do with qualified charitable deductions out of IRAs.
Wow.
Because they're not donations.
Yes. So wait. So what can we do with that? So it's an interesting question, but your question is how can we handle it?
Yeah, it's membership.
Yeah.
it might be membership dues. It's not a donation. In other words, you don't want a donation letter. You don't need an acknowledgement, or there might be a special letter for it.
Yes. So Margie is a great point. Let me make this suggestion. I think first, I think we should finish the kind of the demo and the meeting as usual for people that came for that. And I can stay after the meeting myself. So here on the same phone call. And for people that want to stay and discuss that meeting, they're welcome to do so also. So we can do that today. Just kind of after the end of the.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we just 3 minutes to go here.
Yes. Yes, and then I need to show you more. First is the email that was generated automatically here, right? So this is what is being sent to the admin. So Manuela Acevedo has updated her profile. The following information was modified. The vacation dates were changed, and the emergency contacts were changed, right? So then from here, if you're an admin of this village, you can click on this link, and then that will take you to the user profile where you can see, contact information. The emergency contact information looks good to me, and the volunteer activities look good to me, and then fine. Okay, so that was the email. So one last thing I want to show you on the demo is that now, if you search here, Manuel, on the search box.
So Manuel, on the email, does everybody, all the people that are admins get that email?
No, it's going to the main admin at this point.
The main admin.
Yeah, we can do something smarter in the future, but at least for this version, it goes to the main admin email address.
All right.
So the last thing I did is I search this here, search person, because this is an admin only feature, right? The search person at this point, and this is my admin profile. So here, this is the screen that you're used to see. The picture is the same, right? So if someone changes the picture, it will change here. If someone goes in and changes their address on the other end, it will change my address here. Also, if they went in and they changed their volunteer activities, like Spanish speaking, you see it's already updated in my admin profile. So it's the same data in the database, right? Obviously, the admin functionality has other fields like volunteering end date and start date and activate, if this person is screen or not, here, screen volunteer or not, those fields are not accessible, but these fields here are the same. The vacation dates that you see here, 21st to 25th, are coming from the user profile. So it's not two different tables, it's the same information, but some of them can be managed by the users themselves.
Were there any, this is Carol again in Oregon, were there any fields that members can update? Or was this just volunteers that can update?
Yeah, no, it's members and volunteers. So basically people that are logged in, both can go in and update, change their address.
So members can change their address?
Yeah, obviously for those that are not volunteers, right, well, they cannot change their volunteer activities, but we can redirect them to the application form to volunteer or something. But yeah, but basically members and volunteers, they both can go in and edit their profile. Okay.
Well, this is Judy. I have one question about drivers. Can someone check that they're now a driver when they haven't been certified? Hopefully not.
Wait. Can you repeat that question? So basically,
on the volunteer, if I wanted to change my volunteer activities, we don't want to allow people to drive until they've been certified.
You're right. That's a good question. So you're right. So
that maybe should be, I don't know how to handle that. But
yes, so, no, it's a great point, Judy. I'm writing that down. That's perfect. So what I will do is here on the volunteer profile when we're editing, here this will be disabled. The checkbox here when it's drive is read only. You cannot modify it. And I will do that for all the transportation service types. Every time there is a destination or something. So I'm gonna write that down. It's a great point. Trans services not editable from user profile. Well, that one was super important. Great point.
Yeah, it is. And then when somebody does choose that they want to drive, the only way they can do that is to contact staff and make that request then.
Yes.
Because currently, if we check that drive box,
We don't check it till
they're going to get service requests for driving.
Yeah, exactly. You don't check it until the person has been screened. Yeah, that's a good way to handle it.
But we want to know who's interested in being.
Who's interested in driving? You're right. It's quite interesting what you're saying, because if someone fills out an application form and then it goes in, it will be checked, showing you that this person wants to drive, but the person is not verified by admin validated yet, so they cannot do it, right? So what's the right process is that, well, you uncheck the drive request and you put them through the process of validation. That's one way to do it.
This is Jim in Taos.
Yes.
Driving is clearly a different kind of service. It requires licensing and insurance.
Yes.
It seems like you'll need to treat it separately.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'm writing that down. Drive.
I mean, and then if you have them marked as being not screened yet, if you have that, screen box unmarked, then they're not going to be able to do anything anyway,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. If they're not,
I mean, you could still mark it as a drive, and if that box hasn't been checked as being screened, they're not going to get anything anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, Diane, you're absolutely right. When the checkbox not screened is not active, well, the person is not driving anyways, because they cannot volunteer for anything.
But why exclude them from all volunteer activities simply because they don't have your?
Yes, I was going there, Jim. You're right. But then, someone can be validated, let's say, for doing friendly visit and Spanish speaking, and they want to start driving. Well, they cannot start driving yet. So I totally get your point, Jim. That's a little different.
This is Molly
yes.
in San Francisco Next Village. For us, our friendly visits, anybody going into the home has to be background checked. So the only time that they get that checkbox checked is to be able to go into home and not only be like an event volunteer or in the public with our members. When I check that checkbox that they've been certified as being screened, that's when I would imagine all of the checkboxes that they have selected for themselves become truly activated. Yes. Is that true or not yet?
No, it's a great point. So not yet, but I wrote it down. You're right that some, I'm thinking that some volunteer activities require village validation.
Yeah.
These are doing that today in different ways because it was, an admin only feature. Some people were not, they were not screened or they were unchecking the drive until they were checked or something. But I think Jim was right, and we need to do something more sophisticated so that we have some volunteer activities that require admin, admin validation or village validation. So that was interesting. Cool.
Manuel, this is Bonnie in Austin.
Yes.
Just one question. Is everything that you just demoed here, is this in the Sunday release or is this for January?
No, this was going on the Sunday release.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, obviously only if we can do this, what we just said here about drive and other things, I will add that before this weekend so that, people cannot self-select. So that will be a read-only field.
Well, we need an option from the village to make any one of our volunteer services a read-only, because for us it would also be Village Connections, which would
perfect. Yeah. Great. Yes, absolutely. Great point. Molly and Bonnie, and I do that read-only. So now the only thing is, let's synchronize. You know what I'm saying is that because first, you're right. I'll do that as an option in the volunteer activity, if it's read-only or not, or it needs to be village managed. That makes sense. Now, obviously, the thing that we can start doing is that if all villages that are on the call, they can send me a list of those volunteer activities for them that are read-only, or that you go yourself. It's like how to make sure that we do that. So that's a great point. Wow, so many great points. Okay, I know we're a little behind with the schedule, so let me just get the presentation finished, and then we have another question with Margie for donations and this is the end. Perfect. Yeah, the last slide is just about the user group meeting. So just reminding you that there is another webinar on the 18th with V2V. So you need to register with Village to Village Network on their website or calling them. But basically, some of the things we will go there is that answer all the questions. There were a ton of questions today because we're doing some exciting things. So hopefully all people that are on the call today that have more questions, you can, I'll be hosting it next week with Joanne. So we can continue the conversation there. And also we will include in that session some training about the MailChimp synchronization features. There is a few dates for January, a release meeting on the 15th of January and a peer-to-peer meeting on the January 22nd. That being said, I would say I was gonna say happy holiday to everybody, but I will not say it because I wanna make sure you come next week.
Good point.
Okay, fun. That's it for me. Obviously, exciting stuff. Kian is starting on Monday. This release is interesting. We have some exciting stuff for January, and hopefully we can do another very, very interesting meeting next week. This one was great. I was learning as much as maybe some of you were learning, so it was fantastic. And then this is kind of the end of the meeting for me. I'm sorry if I was not able to read the chat. Hopefully, people were asking the questions along the way. If it was not the case, we need to discuss Marchie's question first, and then I'll stay here for, other questions that there might be on the chat. For people that don't—
Manuel, this is Rich Wiener from Parkland Village. Can I ask you a quick question before I sign off?
Well, give me a second. So maybe the thing is, let me do. This is my suggestion for people that are done with the meeting. Kind of the meeting's done here. The people that want to leave now, anyone can leave anytime. So that's first thing. Second, I think we can do Rich quick question now. Then we move on to Margie's question, and then if there are other questions from other people, let's stay here for a little while also. So Rich, for people that want to go, well, bye-bye, and talk to you soon. Rich, we start with your question, and then we move on to Margie's question.
Okay, yes, Manuel, this has been a great experience for me, the first webinar with you. Thank you. I have a personal call with you at 2 o'clock. You said to use the webinar. So am I going to just get onto the webinar Helpful Village link, and then will it direct me to make a certain call to a number, or do I need to know?
Well, you will do the same thing that you did for today. It's kind of a webinar with 2 people.
Okay, exact same thing. I'll get in touch with you.
Like you successfully did it once, so just go over the same process, and I'll be on the meeting at that time.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, talk to you later. And then Margie, are you still with us?
Yeah. Yes. I actually have very limited time, so I'm sort of sorry. I just need to know what's the best place to bring it up, because I think it's much more than just us. So we get money in, we're starting to get them in from people's IRAs. So it's not a donation that needs to be, or do we want to acknowledge through a regular donation acknowledgement letter. I'm just thinking maybe we have to handle this all through the accounting system, because it's not a normal donation. So we're getting more and more of those because, of course, the tax law changed, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, but it does bring up the more important question of membership categories. We have a terrible problem with Helpful Village. We're paying for members who really are only donors, but we call them social members, but we have no way of designating social membership other than, to call them social in a tag so that we can send them emails and stuff. They're not really members. They're donors, but we do want them designated members so we can tag them as a group. Yes. So so this is yet another wrinkle on that, which is now we have people who are donors who aren't really donors in the sense of needing an acknowledgement letter.
Yes. Okay. First, I know Carol wanted to say something, and I would do a roundtable so other villages, can pitch in, and then if other people want to say something, I'll be listening. So Carol, you go first.
Just a quick thank you, number one, for the grace period enhancement. So we desperately need that. And so I just need to ask a question about the behavior of that feature. Let's say we set up a 30-day grace period.
Yes.
At the end of that grace period, is the member, and let's say they haven't paid in that 30-day grace period. So we're not going to give them, the ability to enter service requests at that point. So they become expired.
They become expired
at that 30-day mark.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if they pay during that 30-day period, do you set their new expiration date back to what the original one would have been?
Well, let me say. The expiration date stays the same. We don't change the expiration date with the grace period. Even the status, it will go from, at the end of the expiration date, it will go to expired. So it will show as expired because they expired, but with this grace. Now, the thing is that the access management, for example, the candidate request services, it will be expiry date plus grace period, right? So that's how it's managed.
So will the member tab show orange during the grace period? And then, you know what I mean?
I need to double check, but essentially we don't change. So what I mean is that the color code still stays with the grace period. So once the grace, the expiration date is approaching, it will be orange.
Okay.
I wonder, I would need to test that one. But basically, if they are beyond the expiration date, I think it's red. But having them as red in the grace period is maybe not a bad idea either. So that's good. Okay, so
it might fool people though during that period because we're still going to allow the services.
Yeah, totally.
So they'll think because red means like finality.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me write that down. Basically, I can see what makes more sense with the color code. So maybe orange or during grace. Okay, so that's good. Now, before we go to other questions, I wanted to go. Kind of answer questions before we move on to other ones. It's like coming back to Margie's request. First, I thought if anyone wants to comment on Margie's, and add additional information on that specific question, they can do it now. I can wait for 2 seconds, but if not,
this is Carol in Oregon. We thought about this same issue, and we have a member category like the social member. They don't get any services and they pay a membership fee.
Yes.
I see that as not a donation. I think they're actually getting something for their membership dues and that they can participate in all of the social activities and they have a vote at a members meeting. Whereas somebody who just wants to make a donation, they can do that outside. They don't need to be a member to donate. So I don't see the membership dues paid for a social membership to be a donation because they are getting something in return.
Well, we don't see it that way, and most other villages don't either. So we patterned ours after Capitol Hill Village, and their social memberships are tax deductible. As are ours. Now, if we give them something, like, you sell tickets to a fundraiser, you take off $20 a person for the food that you're providing. But in general, I think that for things that are open to the public, even if it's a sort of restricted public, if you would, I think the IRS doesn't have any trouble with that as a donation. So we certainly advertise social membership as tax deductible. And the change, of course, is that since fewer people are itemizing, the tax deduction is less of an appeal for membership or donations. But now people are sending in their membership dues, social membership dues, or service membership dues from their QCD. And I mean, from their IRAs, and we don't want them to get, I guess we could produce the letters and just pull them. The issue, though, is sort of more overall of the idea of membership categories that have different parameters associated with them. And I'm sort of sorry to have brought it up because I have a client in 15 minutes and I have to drive across town. So I can't stay long on the call. I'm just bringing it up because I think it's December and it's something we're going to have to face of how to handle this.
Yeah, definitely. And so we don't want you to be late, Margie, for your appointment. So I think it's an interesting conversation. We can resume at a different time. I think it's great bringing that up. Definitely what we do at Helpful, we already see this difference between full membership and social membership. I think that one is kind of, I can understand the implications of kind of the difference between donors and social membership that was discussed with, Carol and yourself. That I think deserves more conversation. Now, I think your other part of the question is what would be the best avenue or place to discuss it? And that's a great question. I would say let's talk a little bit more about it next week on the webinar if you can make it, and then try to figure it out. I don't have the answer yet, but I think definitely we can talk some more. Perfect.
Okay, that sounds great. At this point, I'm anticipating by next year it'll be much more of a tidal wave. This year it's only a few.
Okay, perfect.
So,
yes. And
thank you.
Learn more about it. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And then for everybody else on the call, I don't know if you still have any additional questions. I can wait for